This is the story about Henri Charrière. The year is 1931, and in the French capital, Charrière, known as Papillon, slips into the crowds with great stealth. He was a safecracker by trade, and an extraordinarily skilled one to be precise. He was mostly involved in nightly adventures, expertly navigating through the Parisian nightlife to steal treasures, often for a client which desired a specific item. He was nevertheless a criminal. Despite his criminal path, Papillon maintained a certain honor among thieves. His world fell apart this peaceful morning, spent with his wife Nanette, when suddenly got ambushed by police and forcefully taken to custody. It would later be revealed that he was framed for a murder he did not commit, and it was probably a rival from the criminal underworld who had orchestrated the scheme to eliminate Papillon. His criminal background and inability to prove his innocence cast a shadow over him. Shocked by his arrest, his allies and enemies were stunned. The charges were grave, and he was swiftly convicted and sent to one of the most dreaded penal colonies in French Guiana, marking the beginning of an extraordinary saga of survival and his relentless pursuit of freedom. After a tearful goodbye with his wife, Papillon was forced onto the ship that would transport him to the dreaded penal colony in French Guiana. The journey was marked by strict surveillance and extremely squalid conditions for the inmates. While enduring this long and arduous sea journey under harsh conditions, Papillon noticed all the rats scurrying across the cell floor. He quickly learned that this was the least of his problems. It was quite common for prisoners to carry out deadly attacks in the smouldering darkness of the night. Papillon soon taught himself to sleep with one eye open. It was on this ship that Papillon met Louis Degas, a gentle forger with a sharp intellect. Unlike Papillon, Degas had a substantial amount of money hidden on his person. These funds could prove to be crucial in the long run, and it was precisely money that motivated the nightly attacks among the inmates. Papillon could help Degas with this. He could offer him protection. Despite their different pasts, a friendship formed, based on mutual respect and shared fate. Degas found strength in Papillon's survival instincts, and together they started planning their escape from the grim reality awaiting them at the colony, forging an unexpected bond, driven by the hope of freedom and a strong will to survive against all odds. After 15 long days at sea, they finally arrive in South America, more specifically in French Guiana. The conditions he encountered were impossible to prepare for. In the penal colony of French Guiana, Papillon faced a harsh reality with inhumane conditions, severe punishments, and grueling labor. The prisoners toiled under exhausting circumstances in perilous and unhealthy environments, with meager food rations and virtually no sanitation, leading to disease outbreaks. The guards, all of whom looked like exalted colonial masters in their light uniforms, were known for their brutality and lack of compassion, treating prisoners with contempt and imposing cruel punishments for even minor infractions, including isolation, physical abuse, and psychological torture. The rules in the colony were simple. All escape attempts will be severely punished, and executions in the penal colony were not at all uncommon. Amidst this grim setting, Papillon's will to survive and dream of freedom became ever more resolute, fueling his ongoing quest for escape. All he needed was an opportunity. In the penal colony, amidst brutal conditions, Papillon became fixated on escape, devising numerous and varied plans, each marked by creativity and boldness. He understood the near impossibility of escape but remained resolute in his quest for freedom, persistently attempting to flee. Betrayal by fellow inmates and outsiders often led to the discovery and punishment of his schemes. These betrayals deeply wounded Papillon, but did not break his spirit. Each failed attempt resulted in harsher penalties, yet only strengthened his determination and resourcefulness, continually seeking the next opportunity for escape. Eventually, he got to face the brutal consequences of the harsh regime. Papillon's period in solitary confinement was one of the most challenging times in the penal colony. Confined to a small cell, completely isolated, this was the punishment for his repeated escape attempts. The conditions were severe, with scarce food and no human contact, testing his physical and mental endurance. Despite the destructive nature of isolation, Papillon maintained remarkable mental strength, using the time to reflect, plan, and stay committed to his goal of freedom. showcasing extraordinary resilience and solidifying his resolve to escape. After enduring solitary confinement with nothing but four walls and his own thoughts, he is finally released. It is an emaciated and grey man who steps out in the blazing sun, but they could never break his spirit. In the penal colony's hospital, Papillon and his old friend, Louis Degas, experienced an unexpected and emotional reunion. Degas had risen through the ranks over the past few years and, due to his excellent behavior, had gained the trust of the prison guards. He had access to privileges and better imprisonment conditions than most. Reigniting hope in both men, they spent their hospital time devising new, bold escape plans, sharing information, tactics and resources, reinforcing their joint objective of freedom. This period of collaboration laid the foundation for their friendship and teamwork, pivotal for their future escape endeavors. The grand night was there. It was the perfect opportunity. The prison organized a movie night for the management and invited guests, resulting in the guard presence in the penal colony being very sparse. During the movie night, Papillon and Degas seized their chance to escape. Fleeing together with a fellow inmate, they hid under the cover of darkness. They navigated toward the sea, only to face a fierce storm. In an improvised raft, they battled waves for survival. Their resilience was pushed to the limit, but they made it. Exhausted but alive, they eventually found refuge in a small, peaceful Colombian community, offering them a respite from the pursuit and dangers they had escaped. They lived along a local tribe in Colombia, and life really smiled at them. After a couple weeks, Papillon felt he had to move on. He felt there was more for him ahead. Following their brief taste of freedom in Colombia, Papillon and Degas were soon betrayed by some locals for cash and recaptured. Their freedom had shattered. They were yet again back to square one. Only this time, they were sent to Devil's Island, one of the most notorious parts of the penal colony. The island is shaped like a dome, with steep cliffs on all sides, ruthless waves and strong currents. No wonder why the faces of the inmates on the island looked empty and defeated. They were all at their last stop, with no way out. Despite a certain freedom to grow your own food, building small huts of available materials, this was nonetheless an isolated island where you would spend your last days. The isolation from the rest of the world drove many men crazy, resulting into mental illness and worse. Papillon fought against these circumstances, clinging to the hope of freedom, where he was reunited with Degas, further solidifying their bond. They continued to dream and plan for a future beyond the merciless walls of the island. After weeks and months of planning, Papillon seemed to have come up with a plan. There was a certain pattern in the waves, which could make it possible to get carried away from the cliffs and out towards the open sea. Papillon's most audacious escape involved crafting a handmade raft, symbolizing his unwavering hope and autonomy. Degas, however, seemed to have settled in at Devil's Island, and was not eager to risk his life for neck-breaking attempt. With fear and excitement, he embarked on his ultimate quest for freedom, choosing to leave Degas behind. As waves escorted him, Papillon sailed towards the horizon, driven by determination, courage, and the dream of a new life. In 1967, in Venezuela, Papillon contemplated his long journey towards freedom. Having survived years in captivity and escapes, he had finally achieved his deeply yearned for freedom. His pardon was a testament to his resilience. He reflected on the trials and experiences that shaped him, and the value of the freedom he now enjoyed. This chapter concludes the story with Papillon's ruminations on his past and the precious freedom he fought to attain. This difficult decision was essential for the absolute freedom he had long fought for.